test, test, test. Test, 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 test. To'g'rila bang'illab ketyapti. Test, test, test. Endi kamaydi. Test.
Test, sound check, test, sound check, check, test.
Test, 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 test. Juda yaqin gapirishga to'g'ri kelyapti, Obid. Test, test, test. Men chap tarafdaman. Test, test, test. Ko'tarildi. Test. Check. Check. Check, 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 check. Pass. Obid, pass. Check. Check, check. Test. Baland qil ozgina. Hozir men pasaytir. Hozir men o'rtadaman.
Machuda. Qattasiz demak. Oting. Mening bir telefon menga xarroy. Hop, teke. Pasaytirib qo'ygan. O'shidaningizni oling.
Hey.
Kolonkaning tagidaman.
Hey, ko'tarish kerak lekin. Hey, yana ko'taring.
Hop, teke. Mikrofonni emas, buni o'zini ko'taring, o'rtaga.
Eshitdingizmi? Hey, check. Siz tarafda yaxshimi? Hey. Besh. Ham o'rtani yana ozgina oching. O'rtani yana ozgina oching. Hey. Bo'ldi. Hey.
Bu yoq taraf o'rtadaman.
Hey. Ha? Hop. check, sound check, sound check. Check, hey.
Good morning, everyone. Nope. Who? Hello? Good morning. It's red. Yep, here. Use this one. It's, you hear me? Do you hear me?
No, it should be green.
You can hear me?
Try again.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started in about 1 minute. So please take your seats. Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started. Please take your...
Thank you, Chair. The first housekeeping announcement that we would like to make is that since this session started 30 minutes late at 9:30, we would like to suggest that we continue until 12:30. We will then have a break from 12:30 to 2:30. We will resume the afternoon session at 2:30, lasting until 5:30 in the evening. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Secretariat. I will now turn it over to the Secretary General for some opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And good morning to all. Welcome to Samarkand. Ms. Naima Aziz, Chair of the CITES Standing Committee, distinguished committee members, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor to welcome you to the 79th meeting of the CITES Standing Committee here in the historic city of Samarkand, crossroads of cultures and ideas for centuries. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to the government of Uzbekistan for graciously hosting us and for the outstanding arrangements that will make this meeting and the 20th Conference of the Parties starting tomorrow a success. Today, we have a demanding agenda before us. You will recall that our previous Standing Committee meetings, SC 77 and SC 78, faced unprecedented challenges. Despite additional sessions, we were unable to complete all items. This time, we must navigate a substantial workload within a single day. And given our budgetary constraints, we cannot go beyond the time allotted. Efficiency will be key. Our discussions will focus on compliance matters, including 6 cases under Article 13, as well as trade regulation and species conservation. These are not just technical issues, they are the backbone of the Convention. They ensure that our commitments translate into real action for wildlife and ecosystems. I want to express my deep appreciation to committee members, experts, partners, and of course my team for their tireless work in preparing for today. Let me emphasize, addressing compliance is not about finding fault. It is about strengthening trust, transparency, and accountability. It reflects the Convention's robust oversight system and our shared determination. We will also finalize key arrangements for COP20, including the selection of committee chairs. These decisions will set the tone for the important deliberations that begin tomorrow. So,
Secretariat and I will keep document introductions brief to maintain our momentum and give adequate attention to our most substantive issues. I kindly ask the committee members and parties to help us use our time most efficiently by focusing interventions and being mindful of our tight schedule. To that end, I will be establishing the following time limits for discussion: 3 minutes for standing committee members and concerned parties, 2 minutes for observer parties and non-parties, and 1 minute for observer organizations. I appreciate your understanding in advance should it become necessary for me to further limit discussions on an item in order to keep us on track. I also anticipate that a number of our agenda items today will spark considerable debate, and I want to underscore something essential to the Standing Committee's work. The strength in this body has always rested on its ability to navigate difficult issues through collaborative and shared commitment to the Convention's objectives. We will undoubtedly encounter different perspectives today, but I am confident that by approaching each item in a spirit of openness and a focus on where we can find consensus and build, we will find a constructive path forward. Even if we cannot fully agree, we can still make meaningful progress by identifying common ground. Despite the challenges we have faced in completing our agendas at recent meetings, I am confident that we can work together with focus, flexibility to complete our entire agenda. And perhaps enough energy left over for the next 2 weeks at COP20 that await us starting tomorrow. So with that, let's get started. Okay. The first agenda item in this meeting is the adoption of the agenda. I would like to turn your attention to SC 79 Doc 1, where you can find the proposed agenda for today. I would like to turn to see if we can adopt the agenda or if you have any comments on the proposed agenda. I would like to first open the floor to members of the Standing Committee. I will now open the floor to members of observer parties. I open the floor to non-parties and observer organizations. Thank you. And seeing no requests for the floor, the committee adopts the agenda as found in SC 79 Doc 1. Okay, next agenda item, I turn to agenda item number 2, Rules of Procedure. I would like to turn your attention to SC 79 Doc 2, containing the Rules of Procedure of the Standing Committee as amended by the 70th meeting in the annex. The rules remain valid for each meeting unless amended. This document is simply for noting since there were no amendments proposed on the Rules of Procedure. Therefore, I do not intend to open the floor for this agenda item. Thank you. The committee notes the rules of procedure as found in SC 79 Doc 2, and I conclude this agenda item. The next agenda item is 3, credentials. I turn to the Secretariat. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, colleagues, delegates. Credentials issued for the representation at the Conference of the Parties are accepted by the Secretariat as credentials for the present meeting under Rule 5 of the Rules of Procedure of the Standing Committee. At this point, the Secretariat has received credentials from the following Standing Committee members and alternate regional members serving as members at this meeting: Morocco, Madagascar, Kenya, Indonesia, Kuwait, Japan, Brazil, Honduras, United Kingdom, Israel as alternate member for Georgia, Belgium, Poland, United States of America, New Zealand, Switzerland, Panama, and Uzbekistan. We note that Dominican Republic is here. We haven't received your credentials yet, but we can arrange for this during the meeting. Chad has submitted credentials, but these were not in order according to the Secretariat. So these are the 2 parties still missing to submit valid credentials. Thank you, Chair. For Standing Committee members. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Secretariat. I do not intend to open the floor for this agenda item. And therefore, the committee notes the report of the Secretariat, and I conclude this agenda item. I now turn to agenda item 4, admission of observers. I turn the committee's attention to document SC 79 Doc 4, which contains the list of observer organizations that submitted requests to the Secretariat to participate in the 79th meeting of the Standing Committee by the deadline outlined in the Rules of Procedure. Note the list of observer organizations. I would first like to open the floor to Standing Committee members to indicate if there are any comments on the list of observers. All right, thank you. Seeing no committee members looking to take the floor, the committee notes the list of observers as contained in document SC 79 Doc 4. And I conclude this agenda item. Next is agenda item 5, arrangements for the 20th meeting. The Standing Committee agreed by correspondence on the procedures for the selection of nominees to serve at the 20th meeting of the Conference of the Parties. The details of this process were published in Notification 2024-119 on October 28, 2024. The selection panel met online to review the proposals submitted by the parties by the deadline of 24 of March 2025 and selected the following nominees for officers to serve at COP20. The chair of the conference, Mr. Abziz Abu Kaimov, the Chair of the National Committee on Ecology and Climate and advisor to the President. Vice Chair of the Conference, Professor Patience Gandiwa of Zimbabwe, and Mr. Ajit Khan of Nepal. Chair of Committee 1, Dr. Matthias Lorscher of Switzerland. Chair of Committee 2, Dr. Anna Wong of Singapore. Chair of the Credentials Committee, Mr. Abasanko from Senegal. The nominee for the alternate chair of the Conference for Parties remains vacant. In accordance with the rules of procedure of the Conference of the Parties, the Standing Committee is requested to confirm the nominations to be recommended to the 20th meeting of the Conference of the Parties. I would first like to open the floor to Standing Committee members to indicate if they agree to confirm the nominations. I have a request for the floor for document 20, COP 20, Doc 3, Rev 1, revised on the 4th of November. This working program will be adopted first thing tomorrow morning and may be subject to change as the COP unfolds. I would also like to draw your attention to notification 2025-112 of the 3rd of October, containing measures to enhance meeting efficiency. Kindly note the time limits for introductions and interventions set out in this notification. As the case for this meeting, there will be generally no introductions of working documents that have been submitted by one of the permanent committees or by the Secretariat. On this, I open the floor to comments from the members of the Standing Committee. I open the floor to observer parties. And I open the floor to observer organizations. Seeing no requests for the floor or any comments, I conclude this agenda item. The next agenda item up for discussion is item number 6, compliance matters. Implementation of Article 13 and Resolution Comp 14.3, Rev Cop 19 on CITES compliance procedures. I'd like to turn the committee's attention to SC 79 Doc 6.1, which was submitted by the Secretariat. The committee is requested to consider the recommendations in paragraph 22 of the document. I suggest we consider the recommendations as follows. Recommendation A and B, taken together, related to the trade in oceanic white-tip sharks, and secondly, recommendation C, related to trade in live animals by the United Arab Emirates. Concerning the recommendations in A and B on oceanic white-tip sharks, I first would like to open the floor to Ecuador or Peru if they'd like to take the floor. Seeing no requests from concerned parties, I'd like to open the floor to members of the Standing Committee. I give the floor to Brazil.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Brazil, as a member of Standing Committee, has received intervention from Peru regarding item 6.3.3, and I was wondering if this is the right moment to make this intervention on behalf of Peru.
We are currently on 6.1.
Thank you.
I give the floor to New Zealand.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Secretariat, for this paper. We can support the recommendations on white tip, but we note that this topic is related to Proposal 28 that will be discussed in the COP, and if the proposal was adopted, white tip would be listed on Appendix 1 of CITES, which would preclude trade for commercial purposes. And so we recommend that these recommendations, if they're adopted, are made subject to the COP 20 decision on Proposal 28. Thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to Belgium.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as it is the first time that Belgium is taking the floor, we want to make it clear for the record that if Belgium or Poland takes the floor, it's on behalf of the EU and its 27 member states. Regarding the document 6.1, regarding oceanic white-tip shark, we support the recommendations A and B as proposed by the Secretariat, but encourage parties to concerned to publish a formal zero exports quota. Can we also make a statement on the United Arab Emirates?
We're going to take these two separately, so we'll talk about that one next.
Thank you.
I give the floor to the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair. The UK would like to thank the Maldives again for bringing this issue to the attention of the Standing Committee, and we really welcome the information that's been provided so far by parties as set out in document 6.1. We do, however, note that other than the detail helpfully provided by Kenya, parties' responses have included limited information concerning legal acquisition findings for reported exports of C. longimanus. We consider this information on LAFs important given the nature of the concerns originally raised. As mentioned at SC 78, while we understand that the Secretariat and Standing Committee might not have a mandate to assess compliance with the measures of RFMOs or other international agreements, we are obligated to ensure compliance with the Convention, and that trade in listed species is not detrimental to their survival. We would therefore like to suggest a couple of additions to Recommendation B, and these would be to encourage parties to provide more information on the making of their LAFs, and noting that the Secretariat identifies in the annex to document 6.1 that both Sri Lanka and Yemen are yet to provide requested clarification concerning their consideration of relevant measures under other instruments. I can provide that amendment now, but also happy to send it over in writing. So in Recommendation B, following the phrase request the Secretariat to continue engaging with Seychelles, we would add Sri Lanka, and Yemen. And then following the phrase regarding trade in oceanic white-tip C. longimanus, we would add including information regarding the making of legal acquisition findings and how relevant measures under other instruments are taken into consideration. We would also note that Annex 3 of Resolution Conf 18.7 Rev COP19 on legal acquisition findings provides guidance that parties may find helpful on the making of LAFs, including guidance regarding bycatch and catches regulated by RFMOs and other international organisations. Finally, we would support New Zealand's suggestion that these recommendations are subject to COP discussions on the uplisting of oceanic white-tip. Thank you.
Thank you, the UK. I give the floor to Israel.
Thank you, Chair. Israel is alternate for Europe. Georgia is not here at the meeting, as was mentioned. We would like to echo the comments by the UK and support their recommendations and their language. The legal acquisition findings is a very important part of the functioning of this convention, and we support the UK's language. Thank you.
I now open the floor to observer parties. I open the floor to observer organizations. The United Kingdom, are you able to read your insertion to Recommendation B a little slowly for us one more time?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Happy to. So I can read the recommendation in its entirety. With the amendments, it would read as, request the Secretariat to continue engaging with Seychelles, Sri Lanka, and Yemen to collect the missing information regarding trade in oceanic white-tip C. longimanus, including information regarding the making of legal acquisition findings and how relevant measures under other instruments are taken into consideration, and report to the 81st meeting of the committee.
The United States.
Thank you. On behalf of the North America region, we agree with the UK, and Oceania's additional recommendations to keep in touch, for the Secretariat to keep in touch with the countries of concern regarding their legal acquisition findings.
Thank you, the North American region. Is there support with the committee for the addition provided by New Zealand, subject to the COP20 decisions on Proposal 28, inserting that before in the beginning of Recommendation B? Yep, okay, so I'm seeing support also for the addition by the UK as well as the addition by the New Zealand. Okay, so to wrap up for recommendations A and B, the Standing Committee is invited to A, take note on the information provided by Indonesia, Kenya, Oman, Senegal, Seychelles, Sri Lanka, and Yemen regarding the trade in oceanic white-tipped shark. And recommendation B, subject to the COP20 decisions on Proposal 28, request the Secretariat to continue to engage with Seychelles, Sri Lanka, and Yemen to collect missing information regarding trade in oceanic white-tipped shark, and including information regarding the making of legal acquisition findings and how relevant mechanisms and other instruments are taken into consideration, and report to the 81st meeting of the Standing Committee. The committee, thank you. Okay, we'll next take up recommendation C. I would like to first open the floor up to concerned parties. I give the floor to the United Arab Emirates.
Thank you, Chair. The United Arab Emirates wishes to express its appreciation to the Secretariat of the Standing Committee for their continued efforts to strengthen the implementation of the Convention. The UAE reiterates its firm commitments to the objectives of the CITES and to ensuring that all international trade in listed species is conducted legally, sustainably, and transparently. Over the past years, the UAE have developed a comprehensive and fully digitalized CITES permitting and traceability framework supported by robust regulatory procedures, veterinary oversight, and close coordination between the management and the scientific authority. as well as international coordination with other parties, management, and scientific authorities. The systems aims to guarantee the full traceability of imports, export, and re-exports so as to render all transactions verifiable and auditable. The UAE underscores the importance of preserving the spirit of mutual confidence, transparency, and cooperation to underpin the convention. In this context, the UAE has already provided the Secretariat with complete permit data sets and supporting documentations for all the relevant cases. We have also engaged directly with the Secretariat through a constructive meeting with the legal unit team, followed by a formal request for the technical consultation in Geneva, which we thank the Secretariat for accepting so promptly. This demonstrates the UAE's continued openness and commitments to clarifying all matters through structured and productive dialogue. In the light of the proactive engagement and ongoing cooperation, the UAE respectively considers that the recommendation for an in-country verification missions is premature at this stage. In accordance with Article 13 of the Convention and the Resolution 14.3, as revised at COP13, compliance processes should follow a stepwise, collaborative, and non-adversarial approach, beginning with a document-based review and complemented by a continued dialogue, all of which the UAE has sincerely espoused. Field missions should be reserved for cases with where cooperation is lacking or information cannot be obtained, neither of which applies in the case of the UAE. The UAE remains fully committed to in-depth engagement with the Secretariat and stands ready to provide any additional information that may be required. We also welcome continued dialogue with all parties to collectively enhance the implementation of CITES globally. Accordingly, the UAE invites the committee to take note of the progress achieved so far and to encourage continued cooperation with. We therefore propose the following amendment text to the recommendation 4.c. So the recommendation alternate we propose reads as follows. The Standing Committee is invited to request the Secretariat to engage with the United Arab Emirates to identify specific compliance issues as subject to availability of resources, to extend an invitation to the UAE to visit the CITES headquarters in Geneva to provide technical assistance to manage potential vulnerabilities and discuss the UAE relevant regulatory framework comprehensively and in full transparency, and to understand how the CITES authorities ensure that specimen CITES listed animal species are bred and or traded in full compliance with the CITES requirements, and report back to the Standing Committee. In conclusion, the United Arab Emirates reaffirms its unwavering commitments to the integrity and objective of the Convention and to ensuring the international trade in wildlife continues to serve the purpose of the conservation, sustainable use, and collaborative global trust in CITES as a science-based and cooperative framework. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. I now open the floor to members of the Standing Committee. I give the floor to the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair. With regard to Recommendation C, we agree with the need for the Secretariat to engage with the UAE to follow up on the discrepancies and inconsistencies noted, but we would agree with the UAE that we don't see that the need for an in-person mission needs to be explicitly requested at this stage. So we had alternative language, but we could support the additional language provided by the UAE, perhaps with the removal of subject to the availability of resources, as we think this should happen. Thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to Kuwait.
Thank you, Chair. And good morning to everyone. I'm delivering this intervention on behalf of the West Asia region. We wish to underscore the fundamental importance of ensuring that compliance-related processes under the Convention follow the clearly defined stepwise and constructive procedure established under the Article 13 and Resolution Conference 14.3. These procedures safeguard fairness, consistency, and transparency in the treatment of all parties. In this context, the West Asia region notes that the United Arab Emirates demonstrate full cooperation with the CITES Secretariat through submission of comprehensive documentation, complete permit data sets, and its request for high-level constructions meetings to address all the outstanding matters through direct and structural dialogue. This reflects that the UAE commitment to transparency and to resolving all the technical issues raised in collaborative matter. Given this level of cooperation and information already provided, West Asia considered that the recommendation outlined in the CITES Secretariat document, we emphasize on the importance of established sequence steps that required under the Convention compliance framework. We therefore support the amendment proposed by United Arab Emirates as they provided a balanced, constructive, and procedurally consistent way forward. This amendment would ensure continuous engagement between the CITES Secretariat and UAE. We reaffirm the importance of applying CITES compliance procedure in a fair and transparent manner and support solutions that strengthen collaboration between parties and the CITES Secretariat. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate that the floor is only open to members of the Standing Committee at this particular point. I will give the floor to Israel.
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, we wish to express full support for the UAE's recommendation and their language. For the reasons that were stated by the representative from West Asia, this is more in compliance with the Resolution 14.3 procedure, and we feel that United Arab Emirates is complying with the resolution until now. And so in terms of a mission, in terms of bringing UAE to Geneva, we see that as a constructive way forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to New Zealand.
Thank you. Oceania also supports the proposed revisions by the United Arab Emirates with the amendments by the United Kingdom. We'd make one small addition in that we would have a report prepared and submitted for consideration by Standing Committee 81, because we would like this to have some more thorough discussion. Thank you.
I give the floor to Belgium.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we are concerned about the situation described. While the cases primarily involve re-exports, they also raise questions on the previous import of these specimens, which merit further attention. At this stage, we are also not convinced that the mission is necessary. Instead, we believe that additional information should first be gathered to better understand the circumstances. While we note the willingness of the UAE and the proposed new recommendation C, we could agree with the amendments of the UK and of New Zealand. Thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the United States.
Thank you, Chair. Speaking on behalf of the North America region, we also support the several interventions and amendments to the recommendations. Thank you.
I give the floor to Morocco.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Le Maroc appuie également les modifications proposées par les Émirats arabes unis au présent document. Les informations communiquées montre que les Émirats arabes unis ont engagé plusieurs démarches visant à renforcer leurs procédures, notamment en matière de vérification des spécimens, d'examen des déclarations, d'élevage en captivité et d'amélioration du système de traçabilité. Ces actions s'inscrivent dans un processus de collaboration active avec le secrétariat. Donc enfin, le Maroc souligne que le mécanisme de conformité devrait encourager et accompagner les parties qui démontrent un engagement réel pour renforcer leur système. Les efforts entrepris par les Émirats arabes unis illustrent clairement une dynamique positive qu'il est important de reconnaître et de soutenir. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
I open the floor to observer parties. I give the floor to Tanzania.
Thank you, Madam Chair. United Republic of Tanzania wishes to commend UAE for its readiness to cooperate with the Secretariat in ensuring that trade is legal, sustainable, and traceable. Tanzania also supports recommendations with amendment provided by UAE and supported by UK and Australia. Thank you. And New Zealand.
Thank you. I give the floor to Qatar.
Thank you, Chair. Qatar would like to express its support for the amendment proposed by the United Arab Emirates.
I open the floor to observer organizations. I give the floor to Oman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Oman would like to support the amendment to this document provided by United Arab Emirates. Thank you.
Thank you. It seems that the committee seems to be in agreement with the recommendation that has been provided by the UAE with the edit by the United Kingdom to remove subject to availability of resources and the amendment by the representative from New Zealand to add at its 81st meeting to the end of the recommendation. I see robust support for that. Okay, with that, I conclude this agenda item. Okay, thank you. The next agenda item is item 6.2, expedited application of Article 13 for West African rosewood for all range states. I would like to turn your attention to document SC 79, Doc 6.2, Rev 1, which was submitted by the Secretariat. The committee is requested to consider the recommendations in paragraph 21 of the document. I would like to first open the floor to parties concerned by the expedited application of Article 13 for West African rosewood. I will now open the floor to members of the Standing Committee. I give the floor to Belgium.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We acknowledge the progress made by Ghana, Mali, and Sierra Leone with non-detrimental findings, and we note that some outstanding legal acquisition findings work needs to be completed. We also encourage the work carried out by Benin, noting that Benin continues to have a zero export quota and no LAF have been prepared. We also welcome the work done in Guinea-Bissau and note that NDF is in progress, but no LAF has as yet. And we support the Secretariat recommendation B to maintain the recommendations agreed at Standing Committee 78 and recommendation encouraging recommendation C, encouraging parties to continue sharing experiences and best practices concerning NDFs and LAFs. Thank you.
Thank you. I open the floor to observer parties. I open the floor to observer organizations. We have support for the recommendations in the document by the representative from Belgium. Is the rest of the committee supportive of the recommendations as presented by the Secretariat? Okay, with that, I close this agenda item. The next agenda item is item 6.3.1, application of Article 13 in Bangladesh. I would like to turn your attention to SC 79 Doc 6.3.1, which is submitted by the Secretariat. The committee is requested to consider the recommendations in paragraph 56 to 59 of the document. I'll turn to see if Bangladesh would like to take the floor. I give the floor to Bangladesh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Distinguished members of the Standing Committee, observer parties, and the Secretariat. Bangladesh reaffirms its commitment to the Convention and to ensuring full compliance with Article 13. We have taken assertive actions following the recommendations from Standing Committee 78, Document 33.3. We appreciate the acknowledgement from the Secretariat of our timely submitted progress report documenting substantiated efforts and progress, bringing about all necessary legislative and procedural changes and enabling their monitoring and enforcement obviously requires more time. As the Secretariat states in SC 79 Document 6.3.1, however, we are proving our commitment to compliance with Convention through our actions. We note that no commercial bird import or export permits are issued in this year. Bangladesh's persistent actions are leading to improved compliance. We therefore respectfully request that the Standing Committee consider withdrawing of the suspension on commercial trade in CITES listed birds with Bangladesh. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I now open the floor to members of the Standing Committee. I give the floor to the United States.
Thank you, Chair. The North America region appreciates Bangladesh's continued efforts to address the recommendations of the Standing Committee from SC 78. Given that several recommendations have not yet been implemented or have only been partially implemented, the region supports the recommendation to continue a suspension of commercial trade in CITES-listed birds with Bangladesh until the party is in a position to adequately regulate and monitor trade thereof. The North America region supports the recommendations contained in document SC 79, Doc 6.3.1, and we strongly echo the Secretariat's observation that the preparation of non-detriment findings is the exclusive responsibility of the scientific authority and must be carried out independent of the management authority. And we look forward to receiving additional information concerning Bangladesh's preparation of the NDFs for the 4 shark species. Additionally, we appreciate the Secretariat's suggestion to Bangladesh to prepare a compliance action plan. We believe these plans are an excellent tool for tracking concerns and to help ensure focus on recommendations to bring a party back into compliance. However, we note that action plans are meant to be voluntary, as it is up to the party to determine how best to achieve the intended outcomes within their national circumstances. Thus, we propose some softening of the language for this item, which we will additionally apply to items 6.3.2 concerning Cambodia and 6.3.6 concerning Lao. And this concerns the recommendation in paragraph 58, and we would amend it to read, the Standing Committee is further invited to request Bangladesh to A, consider supporting a compliance action plan with the support of the Secretariat, detailing how it will address the recommendations of the Standing Committee using the voluntary template provided by the Secretariat. and the remaining recommendations are unchanged.
Can you read that one more time, please?
Sure, thank you. So it's subparagraph A, and it reads, consider preparing a compliance action plan with the support of the Secretariat, detailing how it will address the recommendations of the Standing Committee using the voluntary template provided by the Secretariat, semicolon, and. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I give the floor to the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair. The UK would like to acknowledge the progress that Bangladesh is making. However, we consider that further improvements are still required. Therefore, we support the Secretariat's recommendation that the parties continue to suspend commercial trade in specimens of CITES-listed birds until Bangladesh is in a position to adequately regulate and monitor trade through the establishment of a reliable and efficient system for maintaining records, strengthens its regulatory framework for management and the trade of bird and marine species, takes measures to improve handling of live animals and the disposal of seized live specimens, and strengthens its scientific authority. Therefore, we support the suggestions and recommendations from the Secretariat, and we can also support the suggestion just made by our colleagues from the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you. I open the floor to observer parties. I give the floor to Belgium.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We also thank and acknowledge the process made by Bangladesh and support the recommendations as mentioned in the document. We agree with the continuation to suspend trade in bird species, and we would support the development of a compliance action plan, so to support Bangladesh with a timely implementation, but we could support the modified recommendation by the US. Thank you.
I open the floor to observer organizations. Seeing no other requests for the floor, it seems that we have support for the recommendations in the document prepared by the Secretariat with an amended recommendation to paragraph 58A to consider, request Bangladesh to consider preparing a compliance action plan with support of the Secretariat, detailing how it would address the recommendations of the Standing Committee using the voluntary template provided by the Secretariat, semicolon, and. There seems to be support for that. Okay, with that, I conclude this agenda item. The next agenda item is 6.3.2, application of Article 13 in Cambodia. I would like to turn your attention to SC 79, Doc 6.3.2, which is submitted by the Secretariat. The committee is requested to consider the recommendations in paragraph 55 and 56 of the document. I will first turn to Cambodia to see if they would like to take the floor. I give the floor to Cambodia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Cambodia extends its sincere appreciation to the CITES Secretariat and the Chair of the Animal Committee for the constructive and professional mission conducted in Cambodia in June 2025. We greatly value the spirit of cooperation, transparency, technical engagement demonstrated throughout the visit. And we thank the EU for the generous financial support. Cambodia remains fully committed to ensuring that all trade in Macacao fascicularis is conducted strictly in compliance with this convention. We welcome Secretariat's conclusion that Cambodia has established a robust system to regulate and monitor captive breeding operations, including monthly reporting, transport permit, quarantine procedure, and strong cooperation among the management and scientific authority, custom, and veterinary services. Madam Chair, Cambodia appreciates the recommendation provided by the Secretariat concerning Cambodia's existing regulatory practice. Cambodia has already begun implementing many of these recommendations. Cambodia values the Secretariat recommendation and remain dedicated to upholding the integrity of the Convention and appreciate the Secretariat recognition of Cambodia compliance with the Convention. Cambodia respectfully submit that annual reporting and its activity relating to this species is sufficient to monitor implementation. In conclusion, Cambodia reaffirmed that biodiversity conservation and full compliance with the CITES are central to our priority. We will continue to ensure that trade in Macaca fascicularis remain transparent, well-regulated, and fully compliant with the Convention. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I open the floor to members of the Standing Committee. Just be advised the floor is only open to members of the Standing Committee at this particular time. I give the floor to the United States.
Thank you, Chair. The North America region appreciates the consultation undertaken by Cambodia and the Secretariat to prepare the report in document SC 79, Doc 6.3.2, and the financial contribution by the European Union to support the Secretariat's mission. The North America region supports the recommendations found in paragraphs 55 and 56 of the document with a couple of amendments. With regard to recommendation B, we remind that a science-based non-detriment finding is required for wild harvested Macaca fascicularis prior to the issuance of an export permit. For specimens to be added to captive breeding stock, any such wild harvest should be undertaken in compliance with a science-based management plan. Additionally, we reiterate the Secretariat's clarification that such requirements also apply to animals harvested from public urban areas around temples and cities. Thank you, Chair.
I give the floor to the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair. We wish to thank the Secretariat for providing this report following its mission in June this year to the 4 captive breeding facilities in Cambodia. We note the recommendations that the Secretariat has made and particularly wish to support that no wild harvest will take place until a population survey has been undertaken and a comprehensive non-detriment finding has been completed and shared with the Secretariat. We can support the Secretariat's recommendations, including inviting Cambodia to submit a report on implementation of recommendations to the Secretariat for consideration by the Standing Committee at its 81st meeting. Thank you, Chair.
I open the floor to observer parties. I give the floor to Japan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We support the recommendation B as the original style. I mean, the NDF must be prepared before before the authorization of any further harvest, but it's just before the harvest and not before the exporting. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I give the floor to Canada.
Thank you, Chair. So Canada agrees with the intervention made by the North American region, and we thank the Secretariat and Cambodia for this extensive report. Canada would also like to draw attention to recommendation E. Cambodia should destroy net tags. We recognize, of course, that the ability to manage tracking of specimens may depend on resources and other national factors, and so we would like to change the word should to is encouraged to. We feel Cambodia should be encouraged to undertake these activities, but recognize that they may be challenging in a short term and would like to provide that understanding to Cambodia. Additionally, for recommendation 56, Canada notes the invitation to submit a report on the above recommendations. These recommendations are extensive, and we are unclear as to the specific need for a report given what we have already received here in document 6.3.2. So while we would not necessarily oppose a report, we would suggest providing a bit more specificity on those issues that we would be seeking more information on, and perhaps that could be linked to, in particular, their progress with the neck tag issues. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Canada. I give the floor to China.
Thank you, Madam Chair. China supports the amendments proposed by Canada on this issue, especially for the neck tag issue. Thank you.
I'm going to give the floor to the Secretariat.
Thank you, Chair. With respect to recommendation E, we note that there are two different issues in this one recommendation, and we would suggest that they be addressed slightly differently because the destruction of the neck tags is actually really important to ensure the traceability. So if we could, building on the proposal made by Canada, suggest Cambodia should destroy neck tags that have already been used to avoid any misuse, i.e. by melting them, and consider measures to implement the use of microchips. Then we think we have addressed the concern of resources that was raised by Canada, but at the same time, it shouldn't be a resource constraint to destroy neck tags that have already been used. So that's our suggestion. Should I read that again? It's okay.
Thank you, Secretariat. I now open the floor to observer organizations. I give the floor to Born Free.
Thank you, Chair. I'm making this intervention on behalf of 11 observer organisations. Standing Committee members have already been provided with information outlining our concerns relating to the international trade in long-tailed macaques from Cambodia. We recommend that the Standing Committee should urge Cambodia not to authorise any removal of specimens of Macaca fascicularis from the wild, given the endangered status of the species, the lack of verifiable wild population estimates on which to base credible non-detriment findings, and ongoing reports of possible illegal trade, most recently on the 14th of November with the interception of shipments of long-tailed macaques en route to Cambodia by Thai authorities, and related uncertainty about the source of some animals traded as captive bred. We also urge the Standing Committee to recommend that exports of long-tailed macaques from Cambodia cease until permanent identification systems for individual macaques are in place, and mechanisms to enable customs officials to verify the identification of animals in transport crates have been implemented at the point of export. Thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the National Association for Biomedical Research.
Thank you, Chair. Briefly, NABOR commends the Kingdom of Cambodia for its thorough response, its openness and cooperation in this matter. Secondly, the findings contained in the assessment clearly demonstrate Cambodia's compliance with international law and requirements. The use of sound data and transparent methodologies represents a significant commitment to addressing previously raised concerns. Thirdly, NABR believes there are higher conservation priorities requiring the attention of the Standing Committee. Continuing additional reporting, review, or assessment beyond what's already required on an annual basis may unnecessarily strain the committee's extensive agenda and the Secretary's limited resources. Finally, the Kingdom of Cambodia has demonstrated its commitment to species conservation, and we believe further reporting is not necessary on this matter. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to turn in and focus on the Standing Committee. We have the recommendations in paragraph 55 and 56. We had a note to recommendation B provided by the North American region, and then we had some alternate text provided by the Secretariat for recommendation E, as well as some alternate text provided by the by Canada for recommendation E. And so I'd like to get the Standing Committee's thoughts on the additional note on the non-detriment finding made by the North American region, as well as any preference for recommendation E, whether it's revised by the Secretariat or what was proposed by Canada. So I'm looking to the Standing Committee to give me some direction here. I give the floor to New Zealand.
Thank you. Oceania supports the US recommendation to note, the additional note, and on the neckties at E, we would support the Secretariat's proposed wording. Thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the United States.
Thank you, Chair. We also support from the North America region, we also support the amended recommendation E from the Secretariat, building on from the suggestions from Canada. And then with regard to the additional reporting recommendation, we agree that we agree with the point by Canada that that this could be, the reporting regarding recommendation E could be done directly to the Secretariat, and rather than requesting a full report on these recommendations to SC 81, the Secretariat could be asked to report in the context of any agenda item on implementation of Article 13 and Resolution Comp 14.3 Rev Comp 19, highlighting any relevant issues as appropriate rather than have it as a standalone agenda item. Thank you, Chair.
So based on what I heard from the North American region, we are proposing to revise paragraph 56. And so something along the lines of the Standing Committee is further invited to request Cambodia to submit a report on the implementation of the above recommendations 90 days before the 81st meeting of the Standing Committee, for the Secretary to report to the committee in its reporting on the implementation of Resolution 14.3. Am I understanding the proposal correctly? I give the floor to Belgium.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On recommendation B, we could agree with the note from the North American region, and on the on recommendation E, we would go with the alternative text of the Secretariat. On paragraph 56, would you be able to repeat what the North American region has proposed? Thank you.
The Standing Committee is requesting Cambodia to submit a report on the implementation of the above recommendations 90 days before the 81st meeting of the Standing Committee for the Secretariat to report to the committee on in its reporting on the implementation of Resolution 14.3. So it would be in the general compliance document. I give the floor to Japan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of Japan. We have once requested to retain the original paragraph for recommendation B. If this recommendation B is amended in some way, we will be in trouble. So we again request to retain the original paragraph of recommendation B. Thank you.
The recommendation B is the original paragraph with just a note to the comments made by the North American region. Is Japan supportive of that?
So we are opposing the amendment. So thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the United States.
Thank you, Chair. With regard to any follow-up reporting to SC 81, concerning the recommendation in paragraph 56, we would emphasize that it should be really with regard to recommendation E, that's where the focus of that report should be rather than holistically on all of these recommendations. Thank you.
So the new revised paragraph up for consideration is the Standing Committee is requesting Cambodia to submit a report on the implementation of Recommendation E 90 days before the 81st meeting of the Standing Committee for the Secretariat to report to the committee on its implementation in the general document on Resolution 14.3. How is the committee feeling about that revised paragraph 56? I would like to give the floor to Cambodia to see how they feel about paragraph 56 regarding the revised reporting.
Support again. Thank you, Madam Chair. Cambodia support the revised document, the recommendation.
Thank you. I give the floor to Belgium.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We would oppose the revised paragraph 56 as we feel that there are other recommendations besides E that there needs to be reporting on. And so with the revision, it gives the idea that only recommendation E needs to be reported, and to do that at the Standing Committee 81, but we feel that the other recommendations should also be reported on. So yeah, we cannot agree with the revision. Thank you.
I give the floor to Israel.
Thank you, Chair. We were going to say the same thing as Belgium. The way you read 56, it says report only on E, and the other issues should be reported on. Even if there's no progress, whatever there is, it should be reported on. The wording could be said, you could say, report on the implementation of the above recommendations, comma, with including or with emphasis on paragraph E, just to isolate it, but not to stress that it's only E. Another issue we would like to clarification, please, Chair, is about 55B, where there was some addition that was proposed and then Japan objected. We'd like to know where that's standing in terms of the language of 55B once you conclude 56, please.
Okay, so let's focus on 56 first and get the reporting agreed upon. So we had a proposal from the North American region to focus solely on recommendation E. I've heard from Israel and Belgium that they would like reporting on all of the recommendations above. And so I'm looking to the committee. Are they supportive of all of the recommendations being reported to the Secretariat? I give the floor to the United Kingdom.
Simply, yes.
So with that, I think the committee can agree to paragraph 15 that we will report. The Standing Committee is requesting Cambodia to submit a report on the implementation of the recommendations above 90 days before the 81st meeting of the Standing Committee for the Secretariat to report to the committee in its reporting on the implementation of Resolution 14.3. Okay, so let's turn our attention now to recommendation B, and I'll ask the North American region to again read your note regarding the non-detriment findings for the committee to consider.
Thank you, Chair. Just to briefly explain, with regard to that recommendation, it was unclear if it was concerning harvest of Macaca fascicularis specimens for inclusion in captive breeding operations or harvest of Macaca fascicularis specimens for export. And so our intended clarification was that if the specimens being harvested are being harvested for export, then an NDF is required. However, if they're being introduced into captive breeding operations, then our argument would be that the harvest should be in line with a population management plan. So it was simply a clarification. It wasn't really intended to be a change to the recommendation, but we're happy to leave it as is or make the clarifying edit that with regard to the intention of the harvest, whether it's for export or introduction into captive breeding programs. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, the United States. So I understand that we will leave the recommendation as is and we'll note your comments in the summary record. Great. So it seems like we are in agreement with the recommendations in the document with the revised paragraph 56, as I have previously read. And the revised paragraph E. Not seeing any more requests for the floor, I will close this agenda item. Thank you. The next agenda item is 6.3.3, application of Article 13 in Ecuador and Peru. I would like to turn the committee's attention to SC 79 Doc 6.3.3, which is submitted by the Secretariat. The committee is invited to consider the recommendations in paragraph 51 and 52 to the document. I turn to see if Ecuador or Peru would like to take the floor. I give the floor to Ecuador.
Yes. Okay. Buenos días, señora Presidenta, distinguidos miembros del Comité Permanente. La delegación de Ecuador desea expresar su agradecimiento a la Secretaría por la elaboración del documento 6.3.3, en la cual se reconocen los avances alcanzados por el país en la implementación de las recomendaciones sugeridas de la reunión SS 78. Entre estos progresos, cabe destacar los estudios realizados para la evaluación de stock de las especies Alopias pelagicus, Alopias superciliosus, Carcharinus falciformis, Isurus oxyrhynchus y Prionoce glauca, Asimismo, se ha definido límites de captura incidental sostenibles para estas especies y cupos de exportación. Ecuador ha llevado a cabo diversas acciones de manera coordinada entre la autoridad administrativa, la autoridad de pesca y la autoridad científica. Estas acciones han estado orientadas a mejorar y fortalecer la gestión del comercio de especímenes de tiburones. Además, se han realizado esfuerzos significativos para establecer una legislación nacional que permita una aplicación adecuada de las CITES, especialmente en lo que respecta a la gestión, seguimiento y control de los límites de captura incidental sostenible e introducción procedente del mar. Dicha legislación ha sido revisada y ha recibido retroalimentación por parte de la Secretaría y esperamos que una vez sea oficializada se comunicará formalmente a la Secretaría. Señora Presidenta, Ecuador ha demostrado con hechos concretos su compromiso con la conservación de los tiburones, así como la aplicación rigurosa de las disposiciones de las CITES. Los avances descritos y reconocidos por la Secretaría evidencian que nuestro país ha tomado una serie de medidas necesarias para garantizar la sostenibilidad del comercio de estas especies. No obstante, Ecuador reconoce que aún quedan tareas por completar o mejorar. Por ello, el país suscribe las recomendaciones previstas en el documento para Ecuador. Se considera esencial aumentar la cooperación y el esfuerzo conjunto, especialmente en tareas relacionadas con la recopilación de información sobre tallas, capturas, desembarques, liberaciones y mortalidad, teniendo en cuenta que Ecuador comparte poblaciones de estas especies con varios países de la región, por lo que se insta a que se pueda compartir información que permita fortalecer los dictámenes de extracción no perjudicial. Finalmente, Ecuador agradece tanto a la Secretaría como al presidente del Comité de Fauna por sus recomendaciones y aportes durante las reuniones virtuales previas a este Comité Permanente. El país está convencido de que las medidas adoptadas reflejan el compromiso de mejorar la implementación de las CITES y de fortalecer el comercio responsable de especies incluidas en el apéndice 2 de la Convención. Gracias.
Thank you. I give the floor to Brazil.
Gracias, señora la presidenta. Perú pidió a Brasil como miembro del comité permanente para hacer una intervención en su nombre. Entonces, así lo voy a hacer. El Perú agradece la presentación del documento SC 79, DOC 6.3.3 y expresa su reconocimiento a la Secretaría por el análisis técnico y equilibrado efectuado en el marco de la aplicación del artículo 13. Valoramos que el informe presentado a consideración del Comité Permanente refleje avances concretos y verificables en los esfuerzos de Perú, lo cual constituye un señal positiva respecto a la trayectoria de las mejoras que venimos implementando. En ese sentido, destacamos que el informe reconoce progresos sustantivos en nuestro marco normativo, en los mecanismos de trazabilidad y en la articulación de los dictámenes de extracción no prejudicial y los dictámenes de acción legal. Reafirmamos nuestro compromiso en examinar gradualmente la compleja dimensión de aspectos y condiciones que representa la introducción precedente del mar, sobre todo cuando se relaciona con nuestra flota artesanal y de pequeña escala, quienes dependen en gran medida de nuestra seguridad alimentaria. Por ello, solicita el acompañamiento técnico constante de la Secretaría en conformidad con los artículos 3 y 4 de la Convención. Asimismo, y como viene ocurriendo con mayor frecuencia, el Perú está fortaleciendo de manera sostenida sus mecanismos de control, fiscalización y trazabilidad, lo que permite detectar, prevenir y limitar con mayor eficacia el comercio ilegal de especies incluidas en las CITES. Ese progreso se refleja en la modernización de los certificados de desembarque y en la ampliación progresiva de tecnologías innovadoras de seguimiento y en el fortalecimiento de las capacidades operativas de nuestras autoridades competentes. El Perú toma nota de la recomendación del informe respecto al uso extendido de esas tecnologías y confirma su voluntad de continuar avanzando en su implementación. Subrayamos igualmente que ciertas dinámicas políticas propias de la región pueden influir temporalmente en los ritmos de implementación de algunos compromisos bilaterales. No obstante, Perú mantiene firme su voluntad de cooperación con la República de Ecuador y reafirma el valor estratégico de la plataforma binacional que ambos países vienen consolidando como un mecanismo permanente en el intercambio de información, la armonización técnica y la supervisión conjunta en materia de trazabilidad, conservación y control de comercio de especies marinas. El Perú reafirma su compromiso con la implementación efectiva de la Convención, con la gestión sostenible de las especies marinas reguladas por CITES y con la cooperación regional. Continuaremos avanzando con transparencia, rigor técnico y coordinación multisectorial para garantizar que el comercio de especies hidrobiológicas se realice de manera legal, trazable y responsable en beneficio de nuestras comunidades costeras y de conservación de la biodiversidad marina. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Brazil. I give the floor to the United States.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of the North America region. We applaud Ecuador and Peru with the support of the Secretariat for the progress made towards implementing the recommendations from the Standing Committee. Nevertheless, the North America region concurs with the additional actions are needed to ensure sustainability of trade in CITES-listed sharks. Therefore, we support the recommendations in the document with some minor suggested edits to Recommendation A of paragraph 51 and paragraph 52. And if, Madam Chair, you would allow, I would like to read those 3 minor edits. Thank you, Madam Chair. For Recommendation A of paragraph 51, we propose inserting or with country of origin Ecuador after from Ecuador to be consistent with the original trade suspension recommendation text from SC 77. Additionally, we would propose deleting chair of the Before Animals Committee, having decision-making only by the chair of the Animals Committee and the Secretariat we feel is too narrow, and the North America region would propose the decision should go back to the Animals Committee, as the situation would greatly benefit from the expertise of the full Animals Committee. So the new text for Recommendation A would read as follows. Parties continue to suspend trade in specimens of Carcosos falciums, Alpes species, and Isura species from Ecuador or with country of export Ecuador, and to the Secretariat in consultation with the Animals Committee, has assessed the revised NDFs as adequate. These NDFs should integrate the results of the steady status of shark species captured by Ecuadorian phlegmatic fishing freight and demonstrate that the proposed export quotas for the concerned species are sustainable. Then for paragraph 52, we propose deleting these before recommendations and insert A, B, and C after recommendations. So as we don't find reporting on promoting and encouraging companies to use innovative technology as paramount for the Standing Committee to consider at SC 81 as the other recommendations. So the new text for 52 would read as follows. Ecuador and Peru should report to the Secretariat on progress made in the implementation of recommendations A, B, and C 90 days before the 81st meeting of the Standing Committee, and the rest would remain the same.
Thank you. I now open the floor to observer parties. I open the floor to observer organizations. Okay, so I'm turned back to the Standing Committee to get some reactions to the edits made by the North American region. Is there any support for the edits that made by the North American region? The United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair. Specifically in response to the suggested edits from the North America region, so we think we heard 3 suggested amendments. The first and the last sounded like fairly minor points, and we would be able to support those. It would be helpful to hear the suggested amendments. We think it was to paragraph A, so I think it was with regards to whether it was in consultation with the chair of the Animals Committee or with the Animals Committee itself. Is it possible to hear the suggested amendments repeated, please?
The suggested amendments was to remove chair of and have the Animals Committee. So in consultation with the Animals Committee, so the entire Animals Committee will be consulted as opposed to just the chair. I give the floor to Ecuador.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Bueno, de igual forma, Ecuador no estaría de acuerdo con la primera propuesta presentada por Estados Unidos. Sería interesante revisar la primera recomendación que se estableció en el Comité Permanente 77, me parece, en el cual se estableció justamente que tendría que ser una revisión por parte del presidente del Comité de Fauna, más no al Comité de Fauna. Entonces, sería importante revisarlo ese punto.
I give the floor to Switzerland.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'm speaking as Chair of the Animals Committee still. So I think the correct wording, if you want to have the Animals Committee involved, would be in consultation with the Animals Committee through its chair. That's the way it is usually worded if the whole committee is making inputs. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I give the floor to Kenya.
Thank you, Chair. Now, with the comments made by the Chair of the Animals Committee and the comments made earlier by the North America, we wanted to go by the suggestion by North America region that the consultation will be to the Animals Committee. Yes, we will also be amenable now to adjust to what the chair of the Animals Committee has said, that consultation is to the Animals Committee through the chair. But certainly it's not the chair of the Animals Committee, but through the chair of the Animals Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenya. I will, the Secretariat has asked for the floor. I would give the floor to the Secretariat.
Thank you, Chair. We just want to draw the attention to the fact that the recommendations that were adopted at SC 78 did not include the language or country of origin Ecuador that were proposed to be included. And secondly, the language were referring to consultations with the chair of the Animals Committee and not the full Animals Committee through its chair. And finally, with regard to the proposal to not report on the implementation of subparagraph D, the intention here is for Ecuador and Peru to continue to promote the use of innovative technologies to track and monitor vessels and smaller boats. And we have asked other parties in the same situation to do this, and we think this is an important aspect of ensuring full implementation of Articles 3 and particularly Articles 4 here. So we would invite the committee to reconsider no reporting on subparagraph D. Thank you very much.
I give the floor to Poland.
Thank you, Chair. And since it's the first time that Poland is speaking on the behalf of European Union and 27 member states, I'd like to warmly welcome all of us here in Samarkand in Uzbekistan. The EU and its 27 member states would like to express our appreciation of the progress made by the Ecuador and Peru, and we would like to support the Secretariat's recommendations and the position you just mentioned. Thank you.
I give the floor to Canada.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Secretariat, for your helpful comments. In particular, with regard to the reporting, so understand that we may have made similar recommendations in the past, also really mindful of what we heard from our chair and what we've been discussing in standing committee meetings in the past regarding time availability and resources. And so we were looking for different ways to try to streamline and ensure that our focus was on those issues that are of direct import to the implementation of the convention itself. In this regard, Canada placed particular emphasis on those recommendations A, B, and C, as we could see their clear link to the obligations. We hear what the Secretariat said regarding the importance of the promotion that is being proposed in recommendation D in terms of the implementation of Articles 3 and 4. I don't think it's promotion of the use of technologies that will allow for the full implementation of those articles. I think that's a bit misleading in the way this particular recommendation is presented, as this is some good advice to those questions, to those countries in question about how they can advance important implementation of the convention itself. So if the parties prefer, we're happy to have a report on all those points. We just recognize that we will be continuing to have fairly heavy agendas if we are not able to start focusing our attention more narrowly in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So turning our attention to the Standing Committee and to the recommendations, it seems that we have 3 edits for consideration. The first is in recommendation A, is to add or countries of origin or country of origin of Ecuador to that recommendation, and then also in that recommendation to have the consultation with the Animals Committee through its chair. That's another edit to the recommendation. And then the paragraph 52, whether to report on A, B, C, and D, or just to report on A, B, and C. So that is what we're going to focus in on and try to have a come to conclusion on. So let's take it one at a time. I'd like to hear the committee's thoughts on including or country of origin Ecuador in terms of the suspension of trade of specimens of the shark species. Is there support for that? I give the floor to Poland.
We would like to express our support to recommendations A, B, C, and D.
Does Poland have any thoughts on, in recommendation A, the edit that was made by the North American region to include or country of origin Ecuador in the recommendation to suspend trade for those species of sharks? That's what I want to consider first.
We would prefer to not include the shark in the amendment to the recommendation.
So I'm not seeing any other support besides the North American region for that amendment. We'll move on to the second amendment, which is the consultation for it to go to the entire Animals Committee. So it'll be to the Animals Committee through its chair. Is there support for that? I heard support from the representative of Kenya for that one earlier. I'm seeing head nods. Okay, so we can agree to that, that edit. And then the last is paragraph 52, to report on all of the recommendations, A, B, or C, or to focus in on A, B, and C. I give the floor to Kuwait.
We would like to support to focus only on A, B, and C. Thank you.
So we have support from Kuwait as well as the North American region to reduce the reporting to A, B, and C. I'm seeing some head nods from some of the standing committee members. Okay. Okay, so I'll just read out the recommendation A and recommendation paragraph 52. So paragraph 51, recommendation A, regarding management of trade in sharks and ray specimens, parties continue to suspend trade in specimens of Catarrhinus falciformis, alopesis species, Istrus species from Ecuador until the Secretariat, in consultation with the Animals Committee through its chair, has assessed the revised NDF as adequate. These NDFs should integrate the results of the study of the status of shark species captured by Ecuadorian pelagic fishing freight and demonstrate that the proposed export quotas for the concerned species are sustainable. And paragraph 52, as revised, Ecuador and Peru should report to the Secretariat on progress made in the implementation of recommendations A, B, and C 90 days before the 81st meeting of the Standing Committee, for the Secretariat to report on the application of Article 13 in Ecuador and Peru to the Standing Committee. Okay, and with that, I close this agenda item. The next agenda item we will be discussing is 6.3.4, application of Article 13 in India. I would like to turn the Standing Committee's attention to SC 79, Doc 6.3.4, which is submitted by the Secretariat. The committee is requested to consider the recommendations in paragraph 82 of the document. I first turn to India to see if India would like to take the floor. India, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. India has been party to CITES since 1976. For nearly 5 decades, India has maintained uninterrupted compliance and stands today as a Category 1 country in national legislation project. The CITES logo was also designed by India. Madam Chair, Agenda 6.3.4 arises from a report of verification mission, which was invited by India in September 25. In this regard, India has also placed Info Doc 4 and 6, setting out our factual and legal aspects. Chair, at the heart of the matter lies a principle that has guided CITES, that an export permit issued by an exporting party in full compliance with the convention is a sovereign act that carries a presumption of validity. This trust-based foundation has enabled CITES to function smoothly and predictably. However, para 82 of Doc 6.3.4 recommends certain restrictions without any demonstrated non-compliance by India and without any substantial breach by other parties. In absence of due procedure being followed, the restrictive recommendation given in para 82B is disproportionate, hurried, and procedurally unfair. Madam Chair, the due diligence under CITES must remain reasonable and practicable. India has consistently verified authenticity and validity of export permits at the level of diligence expected by an importing party under Resolution 12.3 and 11.3. Since Agenda Item 6.3 is framed as an Article 13 compliance matter, Resolution 14.2 should govern the further process. Resolution 14.3 requires consultations, factual verifications, based on a complete record and a meaningful opportunity to concerned parties to provide clarification before any restrictive step is considered. Madam Chair, before submission of the present document, the required steps have not been completed. The mission's own finding identify numerous situations under which require further clarification, as narrated in para 29 to 59, indicating that a dialogue with parties is ongoing and is still necessary. In this constructive spirit, India respectfully requests the Standing Committee to, number 1, refrain from adopting any retrospective or punitive action proposed under paragraph 82B, reaffirm that compliance matters under Article 13 must follow a dialogue-based cooperative approach in line with Resolution Conference 48.3, and encourage a way forward for structured consultation between the Secretariat, India, and the other exporting parties concerned, pursue a partnership-driven process consistent with established CITES resolution, procedures, and practice. Madam, India remains fully committed to strengthening this convention by upholding its core principle and working with all parties and Secretariat in the matter under established procedure of CITES in a spirit of trust, transparency, collaboration, and mutual respect. We stand ready to provide any further information in the matter for careful consideration of the recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I will give the floor to the Secretariat for some clarification.
Thank you, Chair. Concerning document 6.3.4, in terms of process, this matter has been treated as any other Article 13 matter. The Secretariat engaged various times with the authorities of India, prior to the mission to obtain information on import permits issued and on the total number and species of animals present at the facilities, during the mission to discuss with the authorities as well as with the representatives of Antara during the site visit in Jamnagar, and after the mission to continue clarifying certain elements. All substantive questions were shared in writing with India in the course of the mission and via email. India also submitted additional information in September and October 2025, which was incorporated in the document. Finally, the Secretariat shared the draft document with India for final review and factual check. Any factual corrections requested by India were incorporated prior to the publication of the document. Despite these various exchanges and the mission undertaken by the Secretariat, certain elements were not clarified as detailed in the document. In terms of substance, based on the analysis conducted, the findings of the mission, the information provided by India and by other parties, it is the Secretariat's conclusion that certain imports raise questions, particularly with regard to the origin of the specimens concerned and or the source and purpose codes used for the transactions. The volume of imports, in particular of species in Appendix 1, intensifies those concerns. Article 2 of the Convention requires parties to ensure that trade in listed species only occurs in accordance with the provisions of the Convention, and that trade in specimens of Appendix 1 listed species shall only be authorized in exceptional circumstances. As the importing country, without exercising proper due diligence, India runs the risk of importing animals which may have been sourced from the wild and traded as captive bred, or which have not been bred in captivity as defined by the parties in Resolution Conf 10.16, RevCop 19. The Secretariat would like to thank India for its engagement, its collaboration before, during, and after the mission. The Secretariat stands ready to continue providing support and further guidance to India going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I now open the floor to members of the Standing Committee. I give the floor to Indonesia.
Thank you, Chair. We wish to express appreciation and recognition of the transparency and spirit of cooperation demonstrated by India, particularly through granting access to the CITES Secretariat mission and sharing operational data on facilities such as Green Zoological Rescue and Rehabilitation Center. Indonesia fully supports the technically grounded recommendation aimed at strengthening CITES compliance through enhanced technical cooperation, systemic governance, improvement, effective communication, and multilateral diplomacy. We are of the view that measures such as moratorium or restriction be considered with caution, as they could prove counterproductive when a party has already demonstrated tangible progress and good faith. We further view that any recommendation involving sanction must be firmly grounded in robust evidence and through risk analysis rather than concern alone. At the same time, Indonesia reaffirms the fundamental importance of preserving the integrity of CITES Convention. The compliant regime must not be undermined, and every party remains accountable for fulfilling its obligation. We therefore encourage the Standing Committee to continue actively monitoring development in India and to conduct periodic evaluation of the implementation of the adopted recommendation. The sustained collaboration and constructive dialogue represent the most effective means of promoting long-term compliance while fostering synergy and mutual trust among parties. Thank you.
I give the floor to the North American region.
Thank you, Chair. The North America region supports adoption of the document recommendations with several amendments. With regard to Recommendation A, we believe it should read, to consider the following measures, rather than to take the following measures, to be clear that it's simply a recommendation. Additionally, the North America region does not support adoption of recommendation B, as we believe it is premature and we think it should be deleted. If our recommendations are adopted, there will need to be amendments to the remaining recommendations to reflect the deletion of recommendation B. Thank you, Chair.
I give the floor to Kuwait.
Thank you, Chair. Reviewing all the information, including India's submission, we note that no illegal trade was identified and all the shipment was supported by valid CITES permit. We also note that the CITES Secretariat document is an initial technical note and some points still need clarification with the exporting parties. We welcome India's commitment and strengthening verification procedure and improve cooperation. And based on the principle of the fairness, we see no base for any strict action or trade suspension at this stage. Instead, we support continued collaboration between India and the CITES Secretariat. Thank you, Chair.
I give the floor to Belgium.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We welcome the Secretariat's work in conducting the mission to India and providing a detailed report of the application of Article 8 in India. We thank India for facilitating the Secretariat's mission and for its cooperation with CITES authorities as reported in Standing Committee 79, document 6.3.4. We acknowledge that India may have additional information that could complement the findings acquired during the mission, and we call on India to explain the differences in data between the national reports and what had been declared during the Secretariat's mission, as well as provide more information on their understanding of the non-commercial character of the transactions. We note that this situation appears to be an exceptional case with a high quantity of animals destined for one facility, and we are concerned by the high volume. We also recognize the need for timely recommendations as the facility may reach capacity in a limited time. Therefore, we agree with the recommendations by the Secretariat, except for recommendations B and D. Recommendation B should be replaced by recommend that India provides evidence to the satisfaction of the Secretariat that the recommendations AI to III have been implemented before issuing any further import permits for specimens of species included in Appendix 1. Full stop. We call on the Secretariat to ask officially to all countries involved and quoted in the report official elements on the exports mentioned as doubtful. Therefore, D should read, request the Secretariat for all cases highlighted in this document to request all exporting and re-exporting parties and, where relevant, countries of origin, particularly those who have not provided sufficient information, and transit countries, if deemed necessary, all information on LAF, justification of source codes, and other documents if necessary, and then continue with the text from to verify that until the end, and add at the end of the recommendation and report back to Standing Committee 81. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Belgium, I'm going to ask you to read your revised paragraph D again. Thank you.
Thank you. I will read at dictation speed. So recommendation B should be replaced by recommend that India provides evidence to the satisfaction of the Secretariat that the recommendations A, I to III have been implemented before issuing any further import permits for specimens of species included in Appendix 1. Full stop. And D. Shall I proceed to recommendation D? Okay. So recommendation D requests the Secretariat, comma, for all cases highlighted in this document, comma, to request all exporting and re-exporting parties, comma, and where relevant, countries of origin, comma, particularly those who have not provided sufficient information, comma, and transit countries, comma, if deemed necessary, comma, all information on LAF, comma, justification of source codes, comma, and other documents if necessary. And then the text continues with to verify that until the end of the paragraph. And at the end of the recommendation, add and report back to Standing Committee 81. Full stop. Thank you very much.
I give the floor to Japan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We also believe that the recommendation B is premature and should be eliminated for the following reasons. First, under the framework of CITES, the responsibility for the content of the export permits should be primarily lie with the exporting countries. For each of the cases listed in the document, there is no recommendation for exporting or re-exporting countries to stop exports. Next, India has already committed to strengthening its due diligence and has begun individual communications with Czechia, Germany, the Democratic Republic of Congo, the United Arab Emirates, Mexico, Guyana, Iraq, and Togo. And as the bottom line, the importers, GZRRC or the RKTEWT, are the facilities for conservations, and the document itself points out that during the mission, the Secretariat did not find evidence of commercial activities linked to the sales of animals or their offsprings by either of them. Therefore, there is no evidence suggesting that import of these animals would have a significant negative impact on their conservation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I give the floor to Kenya.
Thank you, Chair. Kenya would like to align itself with the statement made by America, Kuwait, and on the withdrawal of the recommendation B of this document. Chair, we consider that it may not be the time now at this stage to make the recommendation to restrict India from the issuance of the import permit, as India has already proven that, and the Secretariat's report in paragraph 28 clearly indicates that it has not found all what has been imported by India with respect to the subject we are discussing has been imported under a permit. So there's no evidence that India has imported this specimen without the permit. And so, Chair, we would recommend that India be encouraged and given time to respond to the other issues that have been raised in recommendation A to F, and as recommended by Belgium, it reports to the next standing committee. However, with the recommendation, the amendment by Belgium, we are not clear whether paragraph, it's an additional recommendation because we already see in part G, there's already the request to report to the standing committee at its 81st meeting, but I think we may get that clarification. We already consider that's already covered in G, in F. Thank you.
I give the floor to Brazil.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. As many others have already indicated, Brazil also thinks that India is fully cooperating with the Secretariat, and of course, we think that restrictive measures, such as the one suggested in Recommendation B, should be only applied as a last resort measure. We also think that we should try to follow, as we discussed previously, a stepwise approach on compliance issues. And we really think that we should delete Recommendation B and assess this particular, a very important case in the next, in the 81st meeting of the Standing Committee. We think it's, at this stage, it's premature to make any evaluation or any suggestion of not issuing import permits at this stage, and we prefer to review and analyze that in the future, in the next, in the first 81st meeting of the Standing Committee, so that we can see how India progressed in this case. Thank you very much.
I give the floor to the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair. We agree that action needs to be taken by both India and exporting and re-exporting parties to ensure that animals are traded under the correct source codes and in compliance with the Convention. With regard to the recommendations discussed, for Recommendation B, we support the alternative language provided by Belgium, which seeks to find a compromise that ensures more robust due diligence is in place prior to further issuance of import permits, and should be considered an invitation to India to take this precautionary measure rather than being a formal recommendation to suspend trade. For Recommendation D, we support the alternative language or the amendments provided by Belgium. Thank you.
I give the floor to Uzbekistan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Uzbekistan thanks the Secretariat for a detailed assessment. We note that no evidence of illegal imports was identified, but several issues require clarification, including source codes, origin of Appendix 1 specimens, and due diligence procedures. We support a balanced approach. India should be given the opportunity to address the Secretariat's recommendation, strengthen the due diligence, and complete necessary verifications with exporting parties before the committee consider any import restrictions. Uzbekistan therefore supports continued investigation and follow-up, ensuring both the integrity of CITES and a fair cooperative process. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I give the floor to Switzerland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We would like to thank the Secretariat for this report and summarizing the findings of their mission. We would also like to thank India for their collaboration and the information they provided. We believe that we are dealing with an exceptional case in terms of volume of imports of live CITES-listed animals and also the amount of Appendix 1 and critically endangered species. We also believe that the amount of transactions in a relatively short period of time justifies time-bound recommendations to be announced at this meeting. For this reason, we believe that a closer look at the transactions, especially legal acquisition findings related to the issuance of permits by exporting and re-exporting countries, which were highlighted in the report, is warranted in order to ensure that all exports and imports were done in line with the provisions of the Convention. We would therefore like to echo all the amendments made to the recommendations by Belgium and the United Kingdom and support this way of moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I open the floor now to observer parties. I give the floor to the United States.
Thank you, Chair. Speaking on behalf of the North America region, we oppose the recommendations from Belgium and the other European representatives, and we continue to believe that the most appropriate way forward is to delete recommendation B and leave recommendation D as it appears in the Secretariat's document. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I give the floor to China. Oh, Kuwait.
Thank you, Chair. We align our position with the statement made by North America. Thank you.
I give the floor to China.
Thank you, Madam Chair. China reviewed all relevant documents and believes that recommendation B is disproportionate and premature, so we suggest its deletion. Thank you.
I give the floor to Lao.
Chair, distinguished members, Lao PDR fully agree with China and align with India's call for a fair, evidence-based application of Resolution Con 14.3. Lao PDR emphasized that compliant measures, especially suspension, must be a last resort. Given an ongoing process, Lao believes that it is premature to consider suspension at this time, upholding the cooperative spirit of Article 13 through transparency and dialogue is the credible path forward. Thank you, Madam.
I give the floor to the Russian Federation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The establishment of restrictive measures entails serious consequences for the target party. Guided the provisions of the resolutions, strict adherence to all stipulated procedures is necessary. It's a matter of particular importance to ensure objectivity when we consider matters related to restrictions. Taking this into account, we consider it important to provide India with the opportunity to present its arguments before any decisions are made. The fact that strict decision-making timelines under national norms and absence of regulatory deadlines for responses by other parties can objectively lead to the mentioned risks. Thanks. Thank you.
I give the floor to the United Arab Emirates.
Thank you, Chair. The United Arab Emirates reaffirms its full commitment to implementing the provision of the CITES Convention and to working closely with the CITES Secretariat and the Government of India to ensure legal and sustainable trade in species listed in CITES appendices. The UAE wishes to recall that all permits and certificates it has issued were based on official information and documentations, including that received from original exporting countries where applicable, and in full accordance with the procedures established under the Convention and its relevant resolutions. The UAE has also responded to all inquiries received regarding these transactions and their corresponding sources and purpose codes. Furthermore, the UAE confirms that it had previously coordinated with the competent authorities of the Republic of India regarding the cases mentioned in the Secretariat report. Therefore, we align ourselves with the intervention made by Kuwait. Finally, the United Arab Emirates expressed, as the United Arab Emirates expressed in its earlier intervention, we reiterate our readiness to fully cooperate and exchange technical information with India and the Secretariat to clarify any outstanding cases and to contribute to enhancing transparency and traceability within CITES implementation. Thank you, Chair.
I give the floor to the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Merci, Madame la Présidente, pour la parole. Nous voudrions remercier sincèrement le secrétariat pour avoir partagé le rapport SC79-6.3.4 qui nous a permis d'imprégner toute la connaissance en rapport avec la mission du secrétariat au Sénégal. Mais nous voudrions également souligner des clarifications ci-après par rapport aux interventions qui venaient de se passer. C'est que sur le contexte, c'est échanges entre la République démocratique du Congo et le Green Zoological Center, Vantara, c'était dans un contexte de protocole d'accord signé entre le gouvernement de la République démocratique du Congo et le Vantara, le centre de Vantara. Et en ce qui concerne l'origine de ces spécimens qui ont fait objet des transactions, ce sont des collections vivantes qui existent depuis plusieurs années au niveau des jardins zoologiques de Kinshasa, et que donc il s'agit d'un échange entre un jardin zoologique et un centre qui est Vantara. Et ce protocole d'accord, il a été partagé avec le secrétariat, ainsi que toute la documentation, notamment en ce qui concerne tous les permis qui ont été émis et couverts. Il ne s'agit pas d'une exportation commerciale, mais plutôt une exportation pour des raisons de conservation dans le cadre de sauvetage et de réhabilitation de certaines espèces, de certains spécimens qui sont traumatisés et qui existent depuis plus d'une vingtaine d'années au niveau du jardin zoologique de Kinshasa. Quant à ce qui concerne la question du dialogue, nous avons fait 3 à 4 rapports depuis que le déclenchement de ce dossier au mois de février 2025, qui ont été réceptionnés par le secrétariat, et nous remercions très sincèrement le secrétariat pour les orientations qui nous ont été données. Et que donc nous concluons tout en soulignant que le dialogue a été amorcé, la communication, et donc nous pensons que dans le cadre des us et coutumes de la Convention, c'est ce qu'il serait utile de privilégier en termes de communication entre les parties en présence, l'Inde et la République démocratique du Congo, et que donc nous voudrions suggérer ou soutenir cette proposition qui est celle de l'annulation, en tout cas de point B. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. I open the floor to observer organizations, and I give the floor to Switzerland.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry for intervening again. I think the main difference we are having is between what letter D, what recommendation D is actually asking to be done. And the proposal from the EU was that it is the Secretariat that liaises with those exporting, re-exporting parties to get information, and this would then be provided to the Standing Committee. In the original D, as it is now, it would be India who would have to do that job. And to be honest, I don't know if it's really India's job to make verifications in all these parties and then report back on their responses. So I don't know if this is really the correct way to go. If we want to have information from exporting and re-exporting parties, in my view, it should be the Secretariat to ask those parties for information and then give that to the Standing Committee, and not necessarily India as the importing party. Thank you, Chair.
I give the floor to Belgium.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and many thanks to the distinguished delegate from Switzerland for providing the clarification that I asked the floor to provide. Thank you very much.
I'll give the floor to New Zealand.
Thank you, Chair. We appreciate India's engagement with this issue and the further information India has provided, and we note that it would be beneficial for both India and the Standing Committee to have more time to consider the Secretariat's report and India's response. In light of this, we support the deletion of Recommendation 82B, as it seems premature, but we do wonder if a way forward would be to build the text around that is in 82B into the Standing Committee and make it explicit that the Standing Committee 81 has to consider that matter. So we're just shifting consideration of that matter to Standing Committee 81. We also can support Belgium's recommendations for paragraph D. Thank you.
I give the floor to India.
Thank you, Chair. India strongly opposes the amendments proposed by the Belgium. Since the mission report doesn't find anything wrong on the part of India. The restrictive measures should not be there in any shape. Thank you.
I give the floor to Mexico.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Nuestra delegación, al igual que la región de Norteamérica, apoya la eliminación del párrafo B. Consideramos que esta es una medida que es prematura cuando India está cooperando, está proveyendo información. Es por eso que la enmienda en el párrafo A también sugiere que se modifique en vez de tomar medidas que recomienda. Aquí hay algo muy importante. Estamos confundiendo recomendaciones con obligaciones. Y lo que tenemos es una serie de recomendaciones a la India donde está avanzando y está cumpliendo. ¿Por qué estamos transformando en obligaciones varios de estos elementos? Sugerimos seguir avanzando con las recomendaciones como las presentó la Secretaría, que India continúe reportando sus avances sin entrar a medidas prematuras como la sección B. Por lo tanto, también nos oponemos a la propuesta de enmiendas que hizo Bélgica. Muchas gracias.
I give the floor to Pasa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This intervention is on behalf of 6 organizations whose names I will provide later to the Secretariat. We appreciate the Secretariat's report and the recommendations, and also appreciate Belgium's recommendations made earlier during the floor. We would like to express our particular concerns about the dubious acquisitions of over 70 great apes imported into India between 2023 and 25. The Secretariat in its report and also just earlier in his remarks has raised questions about the source codes under used in these transactions, ranging from C, source code, to I, source code. Great ape scientists have cautioned that there's no conservation rationale for taking great apes from wild populations for relocating or exporting them to zoos. When captive care is required for these victims of the illegal trade, best practice established by Pan-African Sanctuary Alliance, which is my organization, and GFAS, prioritize placing these individuals in a suitable range state sanctuaries. The assertion that newly confiscated infant great apes should be taken from range states to receive care defies logic and good welfare practice. All great ape species are critically endangered or in danger and listed in Appendix 1. International trade in these species must be exceptional and enhance the conservation value of the species. Demand for wild animals to stock captive facilities perpetuates poaching and trafficking of great apes. We urge the Standing Committee to request all parties to suspend exports of live CITES listed animals to India until all the concerns in this document and also Doc 6.3.1 that we discussed earlier have been addressed. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I give the floor to Iaza.
Thank you, Chair. This intervention is on behalf of IAZA, AZA, and WAZA. We thank the Secretariat for undertaking the mission to India and for their thorough report in document 6.3.4. We also commend India for their collaboration and transparency during the mission. Our organizations are concerned about the findings of the Secretariat's mission, particularly in relation to source code issues in export and re-export permits, instances of what could be movement of animals through third parties to conceal commercial trade, and the lack of exercise of due diligence. Performing due diligence is crucial for avoiding illegal and/or unsustainable sourcing of animals, including laundering of wild-caught specimens as captive bred. Our accredited members go above and beyond when it comes to their own due diligence. Our organizations have clear standards and procedures in place to assure vetting of facilities and legal acquisition and disposition. We hold our members accountable for these requirements. Recalling Resolution Conf 11.3 Ref COP 19 on compliance and enforcement, we urge parties to ensure that due diligence processes are robust and effective. The Secretariat's report raises serious concerns about several transactions involving great apes and big cats from non-range countries. We believe it is important that these issues are clarified and that, as appropriate, measures to ensure compliance with the Convention are put in place. In conclusion, Chair, we encourage the Standing Committee to support the recommendations made by the Secretariat in paragraph 82, and we also support the interventions and amendments proposed by Belgium on behalf of the European Union and its member states, and supported by Switzerland and the UK. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just want to remind everyone of the speaking time limits for observer organizations. It's capped at 1 minute, and for non-parties and observer parties, it's at 2 minutes. So I'm going to take one more intervention from Canada, and then I'm going to turn to the Standing Committee to try to sort out these recommendations.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll be brief. We continue to support the North American regional position to delete paragraph B and do not agree with the amendments proposed by Belgium. We further note if there is a report back on these items to SC 81 as proposed in recommendation E, we will have that opportunity to re-examine whether or not further action is needed. With particular regard to the proposed amendments from Belgium, but to paragraph D, we do not support these amendments. We believe that this request should be to India, in that it is asking India to undertake its due diligence practices with these particular cases in mind. Changing this decision to one directed to the Secretariat is essentially initiating a separate Article 13 process on the countries that are indicated here, and we do not think it's appropriate to do that through this document. Here we should deal with the issue that was originally identified by the Standing Committee related to the questions around India. Should the Secretariat find there's reason to initiate a new Article 13 process, they have the authorities to do that as appropriate. But here what we are asking India to do is to undertake its due diligence, and then, if needed, take appropriate measures and report on those appropriate measures that India undertook to SC 81. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And so I'm going to focus in on the Standing Committee, and we're going to try to work through these recommendations. I did not hear any opposition to recommendation A in paragraph 82. The North American region did make a particular edit to the last, to paragraph A for, to consider the measures. We have support for that. Okay, I'm seeing nodding. Recommendation B, we had a lot of support for removing recommendation B. We also had some support for retaining the recommendation, and then an edit for the recommendation. So let's start with the recommendation B. Is there any support for retaining this recommendation in the document after all of the discussion that we've had on the floor? As stated in the document, recommendation B, support for retention of this recommendation. Do we have any support for retention of this recommendation as amended by Belgium? Is that a yes? I see some yeses.
All of you are the same.
Okay. Let's move to recommendation D, and maybe we'll come back to recommendation B. Recommendation D, support for the amending the recommendation by Belgium to task this work to the Secretariat. I'm seeing some head nods. Is anyone opposed to revising this recommendation so that the Secretariat does not undertake this work? The United States.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Apologies if we're not fully understanding your suggestion, but from the North America region, our position remains that we would like to retain recommendation D as it appears in the document. Thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to Kuwait.
Thank you, Chair. As mentioned just now by North America, we support recommendation D as it is. Thank you.
So it's I'm seeing there's a majority to keep the text as proposed by the Secretariat in the document. There is limited support for the amendment made by Belgium. But I see Kenya has their, can I give the floor to Kenya?
Chair, we consider according to the convention, it is the responsibility of the exporting country to satisfy the importing country that the specimen being exported for Appendix 1 listed species are legally acquired and the source and purpose of that export is permitted by that country in observance of the provisions of the convention. We also note that the report we are discussing and to the admission of the Secretariat is an interim report, so implementation of procedures in Resolution 14.3 are still ongoing, so the process is not completed. And so recommendation D is calling for India to provide any further details establishing whether the exports from the countries that exported to India had already met the requirements of this provision, doing due diligence. So we would recommend that we retain the recommendation D as presented by the Secretariat. Thank you.
I'm seeing an overwhelming support for remaining the recommendation D, task to India to do the due diligence. I know we have a few members of the Standing Committee who feel this work should be undertaken by the Secretariat. How about if the Secretariat can support India and India with support of the Secretariat? Is that something that the Standing Committee can consider? Is that acceptable to the Standing Committee, that the recommendation is revised to request India with support of the Standing Committee for all cases highlighted in this document? Sorry, the Secretariat. Okay, I'm seeing some head nods. Kuwait?
Thank you, Chair. I think we intensively have a discussion that this is the duty of the country itself in compliance. Canada also clarified clearly that it is, the process is undergoing and any other compliance matter can be discussed in separately document. So we still support the recommendation as it is in paragraph D. Thank you.
I'd like to give the floor to India to see what their thoughts are about the Secretariat supporting them in implementation of Recommendation D. I give the floor to India.
Thank you, Chair. In respect of Recommendation 82D, India is in a position to verify all the exporting permits and in collaboration with the concerned countries. So the support of Secretariat may not be needed. Thank you.
I give the floor to Belgium.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We made the proposal, the intervention, because we're concerned for the workload that it would place on one party, as quite a number of parties are involved, and it will place a huge workload on India. But if they insist on doing this work, then we, in the spirit of compromise, can agree to that. One point that we would like to see added is to add the countries of origin in this paragraph, so to be sure that all parties that are involved are mentioned and included in the investigations. Thanks.
I believe it is in there. It's a request to India for cases highlighted in the document and for any other cases that may identify that raise similar concerns, liaise with the exporting and re-exporting parties and, where relevant, countries of origin. Okay, so I think we can agree to Recommendation D as in the document. Let's go back to Recommendation B. So we also had a lot of support for removal of Recommendation B. There was some standing committee members that feel Recommendation B should remain in the document. And we also had a proposal from the Oceanic region where Recommendation B can be looped into what SC 81 considers when they review the document and the report on the implementation. And so I would think the latter would be a nice compromise for that Recommendation B to be part of what the next regular meeting of the Standing Committee considers when they look at implementation of the remaining recommendations. I'd like to get the committee's thoughts on that. I give the floor to the United States.
Thank you, Chair. We think that the Standing Committee at SC 81 already has the authority to take recommendations that it deems appropriate with regard to the subsequent reporting. So we continue to think that folding Recommendation B into Recommendation E is not needed, but we would, in the spirit of compromise, we'd be happy to consider additional language. Do you have a specific edit or some vision of how those two recommendations would be combined? Thank you.
I will in a second. Okay, so some revised language for recommendation E would be the recommendation as written, and then at the end, it would be for the Standing Committee to consider any, hold on, what did I write? For the Standing Committee to consider if any additional measures need to be considered in the permitting of Appendix 1 species. Okay, so the revised recommendation D, following E, following what has been provided by the Secretariat, would read for the Standing Committee to consider if any further measures are needed regarding trade in Appendix 1 species. The United States.
Thank you, Chair. I think our preference from the North America region would be to have the direction to the Standing Committee simply to make additional recommendations as appropriate and not be overly prescriptive. Thank you.
Kuwait.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with North America, and we still, with the support of the deletion of P, and let the Standing Committee decide the appropriate measure in the next Standing Committee meeting. That will be automatically be taken in the next Standing Committee meeting. So we are with the deletion of paragraph B. Thank you.
Brazil.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We also agree that the new addition proposed by the Secretariat is too prescriptive. We think that it would be more suitable to have a more open discussion in the Standing Committee, so that the Standing Committee can decide for itself what is the best recommendation and the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there support? Belgium.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We can support the addition proposed by the Secretariat, as we feel it's natural for the Standing Committee to look into the matter and see if there's anything additional needed. And regarding recommendation B, we would like to maintain the language as proposed amended. We would like to highlight again that we don't see this as it was amended, that this is a sanction to India. On the contrary, it gives the opportunity for India to provide evidence that the necessary has been done. We speak about a lot of animals here, some of which are extremely endangered, and so if India can provide the information that everything in recommendations A, I to III has been done, then there is no problem of continuing with issuing permits. Thank you very much.
For the Standing Committee, do we have any support for retaining recommendation B besides Belgium? The UK? Switzerland? So there doesn't seem to be enough support for retaining recommendation B. There was a proposal to fold that in some way into recommendation E that also did not have a lot of support. There was a proposed edit by the North American region to expand that just for the Standing Committee to make any recommendations, additional recommendations as appropriate. That seemed to have some support. So what I'm getting from the Standing Committee is that we have the recommendations in paragraph 82 with the edit to the last sentence to consider these particular measures. We have the deletion of recommendation B. We have the amendment to recommendation D to add that one is as is. Recommendation E to add at the end for the Standing Committee to consider other measures as appropriate. And F, D remain as proposed by the Secretariat. I give the floor to Belgium.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for giving the overview. We are very disappointed because we've shown a lot of flexibility with regard to recommendation D. And we were hoping that it works both ways. So we would really try again and ask for flexibility from parties to consider where we come from. And we consider keeping recommendation B, knowing that this is not a sanction, but this is a request to provide evidence. Thank you.
Any comments from the Standing Committee regarding the request for flexibility? I'll give the floor to the North American region.
Thank you, Chair. From the North America region, our preference is to go with the recommendations as you just summarized them in your comments. Thank you.
I do not see any support for any alternate recommendations, and I do see support for how I just summarized them. And so with that, I'm going to close this agenda item. The next agenda item is 6.3.5, application of Article 13 in Lao PDR. I would like to turn the committee's attention to document SC 79 6.3.5, which is submitted by the Secretariat. The committee is invited to consider the recommendations in paragraph 76 and 77 of the document. I give the floor to I first give the floor to Lao PDR.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chair, distinguished members, with the highest respect, Lao PDR must underline one essential fact. We have deeply what the Standing Committee asks of us. Nearly all 17 recommendations under Article 13 have not been fully or substantially implemented, namely Prime Minister Order number 25, the operational CITES permit database, verifying enforcement cases, full tiger control, independent maquette founder stock verification, and a national elephant information management system for elephant established. These are not promises, they are completed, documented reforms. Chair, Lao PDR knows the concern raised in recent reports by observer, media outlets, and research groups like Global Initiative, Mangawe. We do not dismiss these inputs and welcome constructive dialogue and joint fact-finding. However, credible assessment must rely on verified national data, transparent methodology, and consistent analytical standard to ensure accuracy and fairness. Regarding recommendation 76B, Lao PDR wished to highlight that the continued blanket suspension on fauna, especially for captive bred macaca fascicularis, is now causing serious unintended harm, unmanaged population stress, collapse of lawful businesses, loss of communities' income, weakened incentive for compliance, and increased biosecurity risk. As we noted in SC 79, Info 1, Info 3, and Info 7, sanctions without relief harm animals and do not advance conservation. Lao PDR respectfully requests the removal paragraph E, as the country has already implemented the compliant action plan. And 5, the Secretariat provide CAP framework much more effective, whereas the ICCWC indicator framework has proven impractical. Lao PDR respectfully requests the deletion of paragraph J, National Elephant Information Management System for elephant established, with all elephant are microchip, and also paragraph K, as the management decision regarding to 1,126 macaca fascicularis at Yonma facility has already been fully submitted to the CITES Secretariat through the CAP report and subsequent official communications. The characterization in Doc 6.3.5 is therefore inconsistent with the CAP report and do not fully reflect the realities, scientific and factual record. Therefore, Lao PDR respectfully but firmly requests the Standing Committee to leave the blanket suspension specifically for captive bred macaca fascicularis, for which legality, traceability, and scientifically justified quota have already been established. This is targeted, proportionate adjustment that uphold both integrity of the convention and the progress Lao has obviously achieved. Thank you, Chair.
I now open the floor to members of the Standing Committee. I'm going to give the floor to the Secretariat.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Secretariat wishes to clarify certain points in response to the intervention made by Lao. In this document, the Secretariat has made its best effort to fully recognize the progress made by Lao PDR, in particular the CITES Management Authority, in implementing the recommendations of the Standing Committee. This includes information on the Prime Minister order, training and capacity building of CITES authorities, the finalization of new procedures for coordinated permitting and enforcement, and the operationalization of a CITES permit database. Having said this, implementation of a number of measures remains incomplete as described in the progress report submitted by Lao PDR. The tiger orders have not yet covered all facilities, DNA registration and the tiger base implementations are still pending. The National Elephant Registration System is not yet fully operational, and the Dalbergia non-detriment findings remain outstanding. Further to the point regarding the paragraph K, we have not been informed of the decision on how to dispose of these, of the confiscated captive population of one facility at this point.
While structural reforms appear to be underway, full implementation of these measures is essential to ensure lasting compliance. Progress on paper is very clear, but measurable impact on the ground, particularly in reducing illegal trade, remains the next critical step. The evidence of illegal trade, particularly in elephant ivory and rhino horn, remains prevalent, and some of it very recent. A press release of the Singapore authorities dated 18th November confirmed the seizure of 20 pieces of rhino horns weighing 35.7 kilos, in addition to around 150 kilos of other animal parts. In addition, the Secretariat has seen information compiled by other organizations, in-depth investigation, independent investigation reports, as well as videos shared by tourists from China on various social media platforms. The Secretariat has also been provided with a decree from the Ministry of Health confirming that rhino horn is an acceptable ingredient in traditional medicine in Laos. It is important to note that the problem of illegal trade, including online trade, is recognized by the Division of Nature and Environment Inspections, called DNI, in Lao PDR. A meeting was held earlier this week to discuss a new draft national action plan to combat illegal wildlife trade in Lao PDR, covering the period 2025 to 2035. And this was chaired by the Deputy Director of this organization that is responsible for enforcement in Lao PDR. Finally, the Secretariat wishes to underscore that compliance measures under Article 13 have not been applied lightly in the case of Lao. Lao has been engaged in this process at least since 2016, and the recommendation to suspend trade in all species for commercial purposes was agreed at SC 77 in 2023. At SC 78, the recommendation was partly lifted to allow for trade in specimens of plant species. Throughout this time, the Secretariat has provided considerable assistance and advice to Lao PDR, including through 2 compliance assistance projects. Many other partners, including bilateral donors, IGOs, and NGOs, have also provided support and training to Lao PDR. The Secretariat continues to be available to assist Lao PDR's efforts and encourages further progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I give the floor to Japan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Concerning recommendation 76B, as stated in the document, Lao PDR has made significant progress in compliance even for fauna. We appreciate their effort, and to support the players with compliance, there should be some visible incentives for their progresses. So we propose the partial lifting for the trade suspension for fauna to allow conditional verified resumption of trade in selected CITES listed fauna for fully compliant, legally established facilities, as stated in SC 79 Info 3, Para 13, Parenthesis 4. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I give the floor to the United States.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the North America region, we commend and appreciate Laos's substantive progress. As a region, we support recommendation A and recommendations C through N. We also have one suggested text change and one question. For the text change, we suggest combining recommendations L and M and making it more clear. And I will read the new combined recommendations L and M could be combined to say, maintain its 0 export quota for M. fascicularis, source codes FRW, for 2026 and onward until management actions are in place to monitor the impact of offtake and regularly review and adjust harvest quotas as the basis for a non-detriment finding. I'd be happy to repeat. Lastly, we have a question for the Secretariat related to tigers. We noticed that a couple of the recommendations from Standing Committee 78 related to tigers do not appear on this list, and we wanted to inquire about that. So the Secretariat's report here says that the recommendation L from Standing Committee 78 related to tiger husbandry is, quote, not fully implemented, and also that recommendation O from Standing Committee 78 should be maintained. Therefore, we were wondering whether recommendation L and O from 78 were inadvertently left off this list, or whether other information can be provided about these.
Can I ask you one more time to provide your combined L through M recommendation?
Of course. The new combined L and M would state, maintain its zero export quota for M. fascicularis, source codes F, R, W, for 2026 and onward, until management actions are in place to monitor the impact of offtake and regularly review and adjust harvest quotas as the basis for a non-detriment finding.
I give the floor to Belgium.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The EU wants to commend the Lao PDR for the progress made since Standing Committee 78 that allowed to achieve a considerable number of the 17 recommendations agreed at that Standing Committee. In particular, those related to the revision of the PMO Order number 5 of 2018, to the CITES authorities, and to the captive breeding and trade in Macaca fascicularis, and to the trade in Dalbergia SPP. However, work needs to be continued to fully implement the recommendations related to law enforcement and to the trade in live Asian elephants. Recognizing that some of the recommendations related with the monitoring of wildlife farms and related trade have been achieved, Lao PDR needs to continue the efforts to fully achieve all the recommendations agreed at Standing Committee 78. Taking into account the previous comments from us now, but also from the Secretariat, we agree with the recommendation of the Secretariat that the parties should continue to suspend trade for commercial purposes in CITES listed fauna species until the Standing Committee is satisfied that Lao PDR has substantially complied with the recommendations C to N in paragraph 76. At the same time, Lao PDR must try to comply with the reporting exercise referred to in paragraph 77, allowing the Secretariat to report on the applications of Article 13 at the 81st Standing Committee. We also can agree with the comments by the US to combine L and M, and we look forward to the explanation on their questions on the recommendation L and O from the previous Standing Committee. Thank you.
I give the floor to Kuwait.
Thank you, Chair. We wish to acknowledge the strong progress made by Lao PDR under the Article 13 process since the last Standing Committee meeting. Therefore, we would like to support the Lao PDR request, including consideration of the targeted adjustment, particularly for the captive bred Macaca fascicularis, where legally traceability and scientific safeguard have been clearly demonstrated. Thank you, Chair.
I give the floor to Indonesia.
Thank you, Chair. Indonesia wishes to express its appreciation for the latest report presented by the Secretariat, as well as for the concrete measure taken by Lao PDR in following up on the recommendation made by the Standing Committee at its previous meeting. We note with satisfaction the progress achieved in strengthening national legislation, improving permitting and traceability system, and enhancing inter-agency coordination in law enforcement. Indonesia considers this advancement to be a clear demonstration of Lao PDR commitment and a good faith in fulfilling its obligation as a party to the CITES Convention. We are confident that sustained effort of this nature should continue to be encouraged and supported by the International Committee. In line with the approach consistently adopted by the Standing Committee, Indonesia encouraged that compliance assessment remain non-adversarial, evidence-based, and mindful of national capacities. In conclusion, Indonesia reaffirmed its conviction that an inclusive, facilitative, and capacity-building oriented approach represents the most effective path toward ensuring long-term compliance while simultaneously preserving the credibility and effectiveness of the CITES Convention. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to give the floor to the Secretariat to answer the questions from the North American region regarding the recommendations from 78.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for spotting this to the United States. This was a little bit of a big exercise, so we may have missed this, but the problem is that these two recommendations have partially been implemented, and it doesn't make much sense to keep them the way they are. At least for recommendation L, there has been adoption of some strategies for tiger husbandry standards, but we have no information exactly on whether these have been fully implemented on the ground. So we could include this with a slightly amended language. With regard to O, there has been measures taken to reduce demand for illegal trade, demand for products that are only traded illegally. But again, the wording that's here does not really reflect the whole of the problem. So we could suggest to implement as well this particular recommendation, but in a slightly amended version that we can come back with after the break. Thank you.
Thank you to the interpreters for giving us a few more minutes to hear from the Standing Committee. We're going to break now for lunch, and we will resume this agenda item when we return. I will see if the Secretariat has any housekeeping.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to remind Standing Committee members and parties and observers that we're meeting again for the next session at 2:30 p.m. 2:30 p.m. So you have 2 hours break. I would also like to make the announcement that the Asia region is meeting during the lunch break, so starting from immediately after this meeting until 2:30 p.m. in Bukhara Deer Room, which is 2 doors down the corridor behind me. Bukhara Deer. Thank you, Chair.
We'll see everyone back here at 2:30. Thank you.